models are no good. And usually there is this juncture between the people who produce the information. They know how bad the information is. At the end of the day, the people who are at the ground level also know how bad the information is. But the people in the middle sort of buff it up and give it a lot more authority than it should have. So there is a whole knowledge issue. There is a whole set of issues about, because it's not just one thing about how the climate is changing. And I went through the details of how temperature, the one that we know the most about, right? And how much uncertainty there is, and how much detail that we need to know about, and so on. But then there is also the influence of different people, right? At different locations. Some people may have greater sensitivity. Some ecosystems may have greater sensitivity. Right? And you may be pushing. There may be tipping points. For example, the coral reefs. If you push them beyond the 29 centigrade threshold, they tend to bleach out. There are tipping points in terms of cloud formation. So the temperature goes above a certain level in the sea surface, you get clouds. Otherwise, you don't. So there's a lot of details in that, but also on how things affect your local context, right? I mean, you at PushpasPlace are probably the expert on what rainfall is going to do to this place. There's this leak there, there's that leak there, the gutters need fixing, and so on, right? So, and that's you. You have to deal with that. You're the expert. No, right? But that's sort of the imagination and the belief and the willingness to bring in knowledge from different sources. That is a lot of work. I think that, and it has to be even articulated like that. How do you enable people? How do you empower people to start imagining how they can respond to climate change or climate? I mean, my standard was, my prescription is, let's let people start doing a lot of local work and creating local knowledge about not only climate change but also how it impacts different parts of the community, the society, economic activities, and so on. I mean, there may be somebody who has a knowledge as to, there was this rainfall here 30, 40 years ago, and then, the whole village was sick because of something. This well got polluted, right? Or people had this disease. There may be some causality, as you don't know, right? So that sort of knowledge has to be brought together, but at the same time, you need a vetting mechanism so that, so that there is, there's some sort of quality control on these things. So knowledge is one issue. I just mentioned the other areas. Knowledge is one. Production of knowledge, dissemination of knowledge, legitimization of knowledge, at what scales it happens, under what modes it is happening, is all there. But at the moment we just sort of left it out to some experts. And they are, experts are sort of legitimized by funding at the moment, and because there's so much money in climate change, you have many people just telling you this, experts. There is no checks and balances. The National Climate Change Assessments produced by the Ministry of Environment are really not up to the mark. They don't really even go into what is the climate change status. I mean, the rest of the report is fine because there's a lot of other environmental work that has been repackaged, but I don't see the linkages between the science side and, because you need to, because if you really understand the details of climate change, you will see that there are bigger problems in Sri Lanka than you are presently accepting. And for me, the biggest change, one of the biggest changes is that the rainfall in the wet areas places like Satnapura and which is on the western side of the mountain hills, Vatavara and so on, the rainfall is declining 10-15% in 9 months of the year. The first 9 months of the year. Now that's the region that feeds the rest of the country. Because you get about 5,000 millimeters of rainfall in that region. And in some areas you get about 500 millimeters per year, right? And then on average you get about 1,500 or 1,800 millimeters. But the huge amount of rainfall that comes into the headwaters of the Kalani, Mahavali, Balavi, Beduru, Kala, Kavirala and so on, they have a huge impact because the rivers carry the water. Right? And in addition, from those rivers there is trans-basin irrigation that is done. And in addition, you get all this hydropower generated, so that for a while about 80% of the country's energy was coming from hydropower. It has declined because the flow in the rivers has been declining, and also Victoria Reservoir has not been filling up as expected. It's only filled up about so many times rather than the 30 times that, in the last 30 years, which is not what we designed for. It means that we have built a reservoir that is too rich. So there is that, and so that means that you will have water conflicts, right? You are going to have water conflicts because the number of people in this island is way more than most places on earth. We have 20 million people. There were some Australians who came here who said that Tasmania is the same size as Sri Lanka, but it holds all the people in Australia if you have the same population density. So because Australia only has 20 million or something like that. So if you don't have the water, then it definitely becomes very difficult to accommodate that many people. Because of that, the vegetation is lush, productivity is very lush, and you can do a lot of supply the water supply needs. You can produce all the hydropower and so on. So that I see as a huge local climate change threat, which is not being identified in report. And I don't understand why this is, because I work with the Mahavali Authority, and this is their main concern. And our hydropower production has come down, but is not going up as expected with the construction of new reservoirs. And surely there is a causality here. So that's so there is this whole knowledge production area, which is where I am. Then you can talk about education in this field. How do you educate? And it goes to the question you are asking is what made me change. And then the second part of your question is how did that make an impact? So maybe it's about communication, but also into your field about how people deal with threats, big uncertain future threats. So I think, I don't know. So that's a big chunk of what I wanted to say. About the climate change, the details I can talk about it. But I found the other stuff is much more, is what is really the kind of questions that are important, which I can't talk about in another audience. With another audience. How do you deal with all this? How do you do social transformation? Right? How does that happen? So I need
just to make things a little easy for you all, I will throw at myself a criticism that I threw at the Peradeniya organizers of this recent seminar conference that we had. The thing is, instead of you asking questions, it will be nicer if you can make your own contributions to what was said. If you could also say something about your concerns about climate change, what you know about it, what you think about it, how you think we should respond to it, anything. That would, I think, be very helpful, because the data is being gathered and certainly will be used. So the mic is available to anyone who likes to say something.